Welcome, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon to everybody. This is Andrew David. This is a high performance call with Blake Newbars, partner program. All of you amazing individuals. Appreciate you being here Monday through Friday, noon Eastern time. Purpose of these calls, guys, whether it's me delivering a message, bringing on a guest, our goal is to help you become a better individual, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, have a better business, understand your goals better, overcome. I got muted accidentally. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. Somebody muted me. All right. So the goal is to help you guys out in as many ways as possible. Now, individual I'm bringing on today is a dear friend of mine. He has someone, is someone that I've known for a long, long time. Geez, we're going on over 25 years now, I think, overall. We've had some interesting moments together. He's the one that I journeyed across the country with when I first came to Florida. And then, when the summer wound down, he's the one that bailed on me. No, I'm kidding. He went back to family. I stayed here. I had a reason to stay at the time. So anyway, Chris Lang is an individual who has, he has done all sorts of amazing things in his life, from spending a couple of years wandering the Midwest as a missionary to having amazing children, being with an amazing wife, to learning all sorts of different things when it comes to health and wellness. That's where some of our initial friendship began, doing crazy workouts and eating crazy foods to try and put on muscle in any way possible. Chris then spent years and years studying health at a much deeper level than I had imagined. And when I reconnected with him, going on 6 years ago now, it is part of, I spoke about it earlier this week, Chris. So I was talking about, making decisions and how there's kind of that butterfly effect. And if we're willing to make decisions, all sorts of different things can happen. And so I had gone through this moment in my life. You and I had a phone call. You said, hey, you should check out this blood thing. I came out there to meet with you and get certified with it. But from there, my life went in a totally different direction, tried to go down that pathway for a little while, but that's how I ended up here, really, because it was that conversation, meeting you, meeting Jason, and then things kind of escalated. So I'm bringing Chris to you guys because a lot of times when I'm thinking about health, when I'm thinking about energy, whether it's cellular or just throughout life, he's the guy I kind of think about and I turn to. Chris, is there any little background that they can hear about that helps kind of establish? Oh, and just please, everybody, give a quick round of applause and say welcome and thank Chris for coming on. Golf claps, everybody's on mute. So, Chris, why? Sorry?
Oh, I was saying thank you, Chris, for being here.
So, Chris, you want to give another quick background on why you got into it so deeply and some of the stuff you've done?
Yeah. Hey, guys. Appreciate the time I can spend with you this morning. Well, it's morning over here. I'm in Arizona. So a couple things just to kind of dive into this is, as Drew mentioned, I started so much of my adult kind of career and profession in health and fitness. I started as a personal trainer, got certified as a trainer. I loved working with people, trying to help them lose weight. And if you think about this, back in the late 90s, that was kind of a field that was, still kind of unknown. It wasn't nearly as popular as it is now. And so I spent time going throughout my adult life. I had health clubs. I did a lot of personal training, dove into nutrition, but it was all about building muscle, or how can I be more of a high performance athlete. And it wasn't until, and Drew's kind of made a couple references, a while back, my mom had passed from cancer, and I watched her kind of go through these experiences. And if anybody's ever had a loved one that's passed from cancer, it's just a very but for me, it was this life-changing experience. And so I started diving a lot deeper into trying to understand health from a cellular level, because I couldn't help her in any way or form, trying to help her build muscle or have, better athletic performance. I realized that so much of health incubated from a starting point on a cell level. And so one of the things that I started doing is I started partnering with really leading researchers, medical professionals, and we built a company called ICL Solutions at the time, where we had different medical providers and we started analyzing cell health literally from utilizing cellular biology and actually looking at cells under microscopes, how they interacted, different things that, how did the cell develop if your body was exposed to specific things, if you had certain levels of this or certain levels of that within your body. What are these different kind of markers that we could look at that have really affected cell health? So having said all that, we ended up building a company that we certified professionals, both, we work with doctors and chiropractors and just anybody that was interested, where we would train them how to learn how to analyze cells under advanced microscope equipment. I spent most of my time probably in practices working with other medical professionals, teaching them how to do it. And so although I'm not a medical doctor, I had the privilege of being able to rub shoulders with a lot of them out there and actually teach them how to utilize this technology in their practice, and just learned a ton of information from it. And then I try to share that information with people as much as I can.
Awesome. So guys, what I wanted to bring them on and talk about, was being able to, so raise the hands or just in the comments, how many of you guys have ever struggled with just having enough energy, being able to do what you do? You've got work, you've got life, you got everything else, and you feel drained and you can't figure out why, right? Maybe you're working out, you're doing what you need to. Okay, so a few of you at least. This is something that for me, it came about, when I started and connected with Chris about the live blood analysis and cellular health. When I started looking at this stuff, this was at a time when I was working out. I was incredibly active. I was trying to watch my diet. I was being careful with what I was doing, but I've spent a good chunk of my life tired, just exhausted. And I couldn't figure out why. When I was a teenager, I thought it was just because I was a teenager. I would always fall asleep in class in the afternoons. I don't know how many of you guys, they talk about like that 2 or 3 o'clock, mid-afternoon crash. I would experience that all the time. And I figured, well, it's just because I'm a teenager, I'm in puberty, or it's because I was in football, or then I was in track, and that's why I was tired. And then I spent some time in Brazil as a missionary. I've talked about this, but I was always tired there. And I went, well, it's because I'm walking so much and my sleep's a little off. And so that's why I'm tired. And then it was, after getting married and having kids and working, well, it's because I'm working, or it's because of the kids, or it's because of this. And I couldn't remember a time in my life that I wasn't tired, right? I couldn't. And so when Chris started talking about energy, I was like, yeah, whatever. Let's take a look. Let's see. So a lot of times what we need to realize is having energy in your life isn't just, let's see, we're talking about asthma, scoliosis, I guess talking about plant life, or plant food. How many hours do I sleep? I've been diagnosed with something called non-restorative sleep disorder. So even if I sleep for 8 hours, it feels like I sleep for 2 or less because I don't get enough REM sleep, all sorts of different things. That's at least how it used to be. Okay. Now, when we start talking about energy, Chris, what are some of the things that people don't think about when it comes to energy?
Yeah, so let me start with this kind of foundational piece. And I always like to go here because I want people to understand like how the body should be working. We've always heard the term factory default settings. Okay, and sometimes we have to set things back to factory default settings just to kind of get this baseline, because we spend so much time with other stuff. It's like, oh gosh, I just have to set things back to factory default settings. And so many times in our life, our bodies have to do the same thing. Okay, and so let me explain that. So all energy, every single amount of energy that we get is somehow having to come into our body somehow. We have to process this thing that creates energy, and we have to feed our cells. And that's the only way that we have energy. Okay, so the reason we eat food is to provide some sort of energy for our bodies to be able to function. And it's unfortunately, it's not, hey, the more food you eat, the more energy you have. I wish it was like that, but that's not the case. Okay, so one of the things we have to understand is how our body metabolizes certain things. And so I want to spend just a little bit of time first talking about something called enzymes. And most of us have heard of enzymes before. Okay, but enzymes are biological catalysts that allow some sort of chemical reaction to happen. So everything you put into your body, everything you smell, everything you eat, everything creates a chemical reaction in your body. And literally our bodies are these huge chemical producers that we just produce all these chemicals. And so obviously sometimes when these chemicals become off balance, emotional things, for example, can really affect us. And most of us are familiar with the imbalances that can happen when our certain hormones are off, and we can experience in certain types of emotions. But we're going to focus. Yeah, we're going to focus on when certain chemicals are off. Literally, our bodies just can't function correctly. Okay, and so enzymes are kind of the start of this process. So think about this: when we start eating food, we actually start this process through chewing. As we chew our foods, we actually start producing certain enzymes in our mouth that start breaking the foods down. And then as our food starts going through our digestive tract, we start producing more and more enzymes that break our foods down. The whole reason we're trying to break our foods down is to pull nutrients and pull energy out of these foods that we're consuming. And this will all make a lot more sense here in a second, but I have to build this kind of baseline. So what happens is, let's say that you drink a lot of milk, okay? Most of us understand this one. If we drink a lot of milk or eat a lot of dairy, there's one particular enzyme we need that really breaks down dairy sugars for us. And that's an enzyme called lactase.
Yeah.
Okay? And so if you lack the enzyme lactase and you're trying to eat dairy, it's a painful experience for you, both as you're eating for everybody, and usually about 30 minutes to an hour later, okay? Because you're building up gas and you're starting to get the diarrhea cramps and all these things start happening. And the only reason that's happening is because your body's literally lacking this enzyme called lactase. And if you stop producing lactase, you become lactose intolerant, and all of a sudden you have an allergy to dairy food. So that's one example that most people understand. But again, it's caused from this little tiny enzyme that your body's not producing enough of that's causing the problem. Okay.
Yeah, see what happens when you guys have it, and I'll let him keep going, but just as we break that down a little bit more, these enzymes, lactase and amylase and all of these other things, their purpose is to break it down into the building blocks that our body can use for energy, or break it down enough, right? Like into the calories. Part of the reason that we have calories on packages is because that once your body breaks it down, that's how many calories your body's supposed to get. So an excess amount of calories to live is how the fat and everything builds up. But so having those enzymes is what breaks it down so our body can use it. A lot of times those allergies end up getting developed because we're, like Chris is saying, we're missing that enzyme, or our body's not producing enough. And it goes deeper, and we're going to get into some of that because I know kind of where he's going with it. But there's different enzymes for different things. So like he's talking about lactose, but lactose, there's lactose-free milk, but then there's also different things like the lipids in certain milk. Like I'm not allergic to milk sugar, but I'm allergic to milk fat, right? A little bit different enzyme. So I need the enzymes to help me digest that. I can't go have 2% milk, doesn't do well with me, but regular milk does. I'm okay, right? Does that make sense with everybody? Part of this is understanding, and especially guys understand. Chris, give us a quick background. We're talking about enzymes. When do things really start to fall off from a biological standpoint of the amount of enzymes that I have or that my body's producing? When does that start to fall off for us? Because we're all getting older, right? Mm-hmm. Pretty much everyone here's reached that age of adulthood, I think. We don't have any kids on. And so you get to that point where things start breaking down. When does that really start happening with enzymes, and how fast does it happen once it starts?
Yeah. And so sometimes just you might be genetically born without producing an enzyme. And we're finding, for example, right now, people that are gluten intolerant, where they really have a hard time with gluten, many times they're actually born with not producing the specific enzymes that break down gluten. It's the same thing. If you're allergic to cats, it's because your body's lacking an enzyme to produce the that are trying to break down the proteins in the cat dander that you're breathing. If you're allergic to gluten, same thing. You're lacking certain enzymes. So that can just happen. But then, unfortunately, as we get older, our main production of enzymes is our pancreas. And so our pancreas produces all these different types of digestive enzymes. And over time, our pancreas stops producing the amounts like we were when we were younger. Remember, a lot of times when we're younger, it's like, man, I can eat anything, never have any problems. And we notice that time as we start getting older, as we're eating, it's like, man, this upsets my stomach, or I feel just really bad after I eat this, and we feel lethargic, and we're just like, man, like what happened? Well, one of the things that happened is our body stopped producing the right amount of digestive enzymes to break something down. And so instead of your body being like, yes, give me this, I want to break this down and use it for energy and nutrients, our body's looking to it as, wait, I can't do much with this. I can't break it down chemically. And so it's going to create some actual digestional pain throughout my system. And then the unfortunate thing as that starts happening is our body stops getting enough nutrients and enough energy because we're trying to break these things down. So kind of the first thing that I always try to help people understand is if you're wanting more energy in your life, the first thing is you have to kind of get your body foundationally set to help break down foods and process things as good as possible. So a couple of things that can help with that. So let's get some solutions. Obviously, there's a lot of digestive enzyme products out there. There's some really good products out there, and literally they're just capsuled forms that contain enzymes. And some of us may be already taking those, but when you can eat a couple or take a couple digestive enzymes throughout the day, it helps your body better metabolize foods. It helps your body better metabolize the energy and the nutrients out of foods. And so that's step one. There's other foods that can help with that naturally. So raw foods, anytime we eat raw foods, they contain enzymes naturally. If you cook your food and all you ever cook is just cooked food and it's always processed, always cooked, it doesn't contain enzymes. Because if you heat something to over about 160 degrees, it kills the enzymes. And so enzymes literally have to be able to be something that are thriving, living within your foods. So if you eat a raw tomato, raw grapes, they contain enzymes that actually help your body break those foods down and help metabolize other foods. So I always encourage people saying, hey, whenever you're eating, I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, only go on a raw food diet. All you should be eating is plant-based raw foods. I mean, that would be awesome, but not everyone's going to do that. But try to eat something raw with your food. Put some green leafy vegetables in there, half an avocado, some red grapes, a papaya. These are all things with high amounts of digestive enzymes naturally. Papaya is one of the biggest ones. Red grapes,
pineapple, yeah.
Yeah, pineapple is another one. Yeah, so those are all good things to eat. Not a ton of it, but just eat a handful of this stuff with your meals, and that naturally helps your body metabolize and digest those foods. Because remember, we're trying to pull energy out of the food. If you can't pull energy out of food because you're not metabolizing it properly, it really starts suffering down the road.
That's an important thing to remember, guys. Okay, there's your diet, and we can talk about processed foods, and yes, foods that are too processed. All of you guys understand too much processed food isn't going to be good because they pull out all of the good stuff. They pull out the good nutrients that you need, and it's just bleached to kingdom come, and it's harder for your body to digest. Everybody gets that. What I learned as we started doing the live blood analysis, and I got a chance to do it with a few people, whether they were, I had professional bodybuilders. I've had someone that's, she won second place in the Miss Olympia contest recently. I've had people that are fitness competitors and vegans, vegetarians, keto, all this different stuff. Here's something to remember about enzymes and diet and everything else. Just because you're eating healthy doesn't necessarily mean your body has everything that it needs to break down what you're taking in, right? Just because you said, I'm going to do all raw doesn't mean my body doesn't need a little bit of help to break down some of the additional food that's coming into my system so that I can pull out the nutrients that I need. That should be pretty straightforward, but does that make sense with everybody? Right? Because there was one I remember doing, and I remember so well because he was, we were doing the presentation, I had a group of people, we were at a gym, I was doing this small presentation, a handful of people, and this guy he's a vegan, and he was sitting in back, and he was so smug, talking about, oh, those people and their protein, and they're eating this and they're eating that. Well, I've been a vegan for 15 years. I'm not saying every vegan's like this. It's just this individual. And when it came time, he was doing the blood to show his friends how great his blood was going to be. And when we did it and we pulled it, it was full of protein spicules. So which look like, the example I always gave, Chris, was like when you do, what is it? Like the sticks game where you like throw down a bunch of sticks and you have to pull them out. You guys know what I'm talking about? Right? What's that called? Yeah.
Looks
So
like-
protein spicules just look like lines. They're a bunch of needles.
Yeah,
Right?
pickup sticks.
Pickup sticks. There you go. So complicated. I can't believe I remembered it. So imagine inside your blood vessels, all of these pickup sticks, and your hemoglobin or your blood cells are trying to get through there, because that's what's carrying oxygen everywhere, right? Your blood that's carrying the nutrients, everything like that. Well, try to get a balloon through a bunch of pickup sticks. It's not going to work. His blood was full of it, because even though all the protein he was getting was vegetable protein, he couldn't digest the protein. And he was just indignant that his blood looked like that. Oh my gosh, there's no way. Do it again. I prick the other finger. It's not going to change it, dude. It's still going to look the same. But so understand, even though you're doing what you need to do, there may still be something inside your body on a cellular level saying, hey, I still need a little help, right? Give me some enzymes, give me some probiotics. Like, I need more because I'm no longer producing it. That's just an important thing to remember. We can do as much as we can. Sometimes we need a little extra help, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So,
And I've seen it too, where sometimes even someone that, like you were saying, Drew, where they're vegan, I've seen so many times that people just have a hard time metabolizing protein. And there's a slew of proteolytic enzymes that help your body metabolize protein. But again, and when I say it's particularly like the American diet, and we don't have the healthiest diet by any means. And so we have some of the largest rates of undigested proteins throughout the body, obviously cholesterol, things like that our bodies just aren't breaking down because of so much consumption of something that's building up over time. And so as your bodies can't break down protein, it builds up throughout your bloodstream, these fibrinogen protein spicules, and your body always has a way of trying to overcompensate to try to help solve that. And so if we start building up too much fats in our system, we start building up too much protein in our system, our body has these buffer systems that try to neutralize it. And unfortunately, our buffer systems are very, very acidic. We try to use acid to break this stuff down. So if we're consuming too much protein, if we're consuming too much fat, if we're consuming too much of anything that our body's isn't like, hey, that's nice and balanced, our bodies start producing all these very, very powerful acidic agents to try to create and metabolize and break down this stuff. And so what happens is if our bodies become too acidic, so we have this nice alkaline balance that our body should be at. We always talk about our pH levels, okay? So we have pH levels in our blood, we have pH levels in our urine. And so our bodies have to maintain this nice kind of alkaline balance and not be too alkaline, but also not be too acidic. And so if we're not metabolizing things, first off, so problem number one, we're not metabolizing the energy out of it effectively. So we're missing energy opportunities there. And then number two, we're building up an excess of something like protein or fat in our blood. And so then our acid levels start rising. And acidity levels create a lot of inflammation in our body, this inflammatory response, which just start really weakening and fatiguing us. And so when we're sitting here thinking like, man, like I feel so lethargic, I just have no energy. So many times it's caused from our body being too acidic because we're having all this chemical reaction that we can't see, but literally we're creating all this inflammatory action within our bodies that are creating fatigue, a lack of energy, simply because we're not digesting, metabolizing foods correctly, which is leading to this kind of chain of reaction of events. So again, the solution, things that can really help is as we eat our foods, try to eat a little bit of raw foods with your cooked meals. And then obviously if you're interested, you can look into different digestive enzyme products that can really help our bodies metabolize foods effectively. So those things can help with that chain reaction of things.
One thing, if this is the first time being on this call with Chris, then go back on the YouTube channel. If you scroll back further, there's another call that he and I did. And if you guys don't remember, maybe you were on that first call, you don't remember everything, go back and watch anyway. So we're talking about the enzyme part of this. On the first call, we talked a lot about oxygenation and hydration, right? If some of you guys remember, like drinking enough water and then the oxygen that your body needs to do everything. The blood is what takes that oxygenation through. Being hydrated allows the blood to not be, to flow more freely. It's what's inside your muscles, all of these other things. Now the enzymes step in, and these are kind of some of the pillars that Chris always talks about in some of these trainings that have been done. when you have all of those pillars working together, you get a better result, right? So you've got to be drinking more water. You want to look for ways to make sure that, the oxygenation comes from filling up the hemoglobin. There's vitamins and supplements that help there. But then the enzymes is what helps break down the, everything. So you get the nutrients. So you get rid of some of these toxins that can build up, because it's not just the acidity level. You end up with crystals in your blood. That's where gout comes from. You end up with pain in your joints. That's where the inflammation and the other things, and a lot of the times it's caused by foods you're just not digesting well. So take a look at yourself. Now, a couple of questions, Chris, that people had real quick. Contact allergy to fish, only eat a small amount of chicken, shrimp, and tuna, break out in hives. Is that caused by lack of enzymes at its core?
Well, it depends. So think about this. Like, even when you get stung by a bee, and some people are very allergic to bees. And what's causing that? It's because you're lacking some specific enzyme that can't break down the poisons in bees. And so if you can't break some poison down, you go into anaphylactic shock. And so every single allergy that you experience, for the most part, can be, so I can't say that it is, because sometimes there are exceptions, but can be from some sort of enzyme that your body's not producing enough of. Okay. But certain allergies, I'm not an expert on allergic reactions, but I do know that most allergic reactions are triggered by not having a specific enzyme to try to chemically break down whatever it is that you're being exposed to at the time. So it can be, but different allergies can create different chemical reactions, not always based off of an enzyme.
So if someone's looking to do live blood analysis, Chris, is there like a state website? Do they just Google it, try and find it? I mean,
yeah, depending on where they live. I mean, I don't know if I've ever been to a state that didn't have people that can do this type of work. And it's becoming more and more popular, even in, advanced medical fields. There's a lot of doctors that have embraced it. And for a while it was, medical doctors didn't really embrace the technology, but now more and more are embracing it, because they kind of see the value of understanding how this can help a lot of their patient base. I guess my best thing, do try to do some research, see if you can find somebody in your area. Obviously, if you're in Arizona, I know a ton of people in Arizona that can do it. But otherwise, there's not like a database that has.
You just kind of have to Google, look for reviews and stuff. So Michelle, that would be, find someone that does live blood analysis, kind of what you're looking for. It's different than just a regular blood or allergy panel, right? It is different than that. It's sitting down, microscopes right there, do the finger prick, take a look at the blood, right? Because they're looking at the live cells. What about Colombia? Yeah, same thing. I don't know, Maria. You'd have to.
I bet you can find people
in
Colombia. In fact, I would say this science is probably better known internationally, where a ton of different people in other countries have adopted and used this type of technology. So I would be surprised if you couldn't find someone in any country that you're a part of to try to find someone that does this. All
right. So what are some things that, is this about Darkfield microscopy analysis of your blood?
Yeah, so Darkfield is very similar. I've done both Darkfield and what's called phase contrast microscopy. And so all it is different views. Darkfield microscopy can give sometimes more of a detailed view when it comes to specific diseases or other things. And so in my particular field, we tried to stay away from, diagnosing any type of disease, just because we're not medical professionals that can diagnose something. And so again, I know a lot of medical doctors that end up learning Darkfield will do that because they can diagnose a disease. Whereas phase contrast microscopy is really just looking to say, hey, how far off of this baseline are you? And then what are the different things that you can do? So we're not trying to identify illness or disease. We're trying to identify how far off the health baseline are your cells in blood, and how can we help you get there? Whereas Darkfield is more specific on looking at actual illnesses or diseases or ailments that need to be diagnosed by an actual medical professional.
Yeah. So what are some things that, all right, so we got enzymes. What are some other things that people can do that are basic to help with just energy throughout the day?
So let's talk about a couple things of some things not to do that are very popular. So we talked a lot about digestion and the importance of having a good digestive process to break down the things you're eating. So many of us like to consume large carbonated beverages throughout the day, or even particularly when we eat. We're talking about sodas, even if it's carbonated water. But let's talk a little bit about just the digestive issues that can be caused from this. Okay, so whenever we're eating, all right, our bodies are producing enzymes, but our bodies are also producing what's called hydrochloric acid, which is a good acid in our stomachs that our bodies need to metabolize and break down our foods. So when we're drinking a soda, okay, and many of us will be eating out at dinner, and I see people will go through like 3 refills of soda even before their meal even comes. Sodas and carbonation contains what's called carbonic acid. And when you have carbonic acid and hydrochloric acid, the carbonic acid actually neutralizes, okay, the hydrochloric acid. So we're saying, hey, we need this acid to break down our foods. And the sodas and carbonation we're drinking as we're eating is literally neutralizing that acid. And so we're putting this big roadblock that's preventing our bodies from metabolizing and digesting that meal, okay? And so one of the things we always talk about is, guys, if you want to have more energy, you'll notice more energy simply by eliminating sodas or carbonated beverages from while you're eating. Now, obviously, if you want to go a level, say, hey, I'm never going to drink carbonation again, that's up to you. But if you're going to drink a carbonated beverage, doing it before you eat, while you're eating, or right after eating is one of the worst times to consume it. Try it, if you're going to be drinking sodas, I don't necessarily recommend it, but just don't do it within that eating process, because it can completely hinder your body from metabolizing and breaking down the energy from your foods, the nutrients from your foods. Plus, again, as it neutralizes your hydrochloric acid, as the carbonation starts neutralizing and your food's already digested, your buffer systems kick in and it says, okay, let's start raising a ton of different other types of acidity here. And so it starts creating much more of an acidic state in your body after your body's trying to metabolize and digest food.
So Michelle's asking, so it's not just, diet sodas, the fake sugars, and regular sodas, the too much real sugar. It's also the actual carbonation that's there that can cause an issue. So things like seltzer waters, same type of thing.
Chris, I have a question for you. I have an addiction to Sprite. I need 2 Sprites a day. Otherwise, I can't function. And sometimes it comes during dinner. What would you recommend I change for 1 week to see if my marketing dollars can improve?
Hey, so Hartley, it's interesting that you asked that, because you're not alone. There's other people that have Sprite addictions. So one of the things that we've recommended with people, so Sprite very much tastes like a little bit of water, a little bit of lemon, and a little bit of lime. Okay. So
a whole lot of love.
If you're, one of the things you can try is try taking just some water, fresh squeezed lemon in it, fresh squeezed lime in it, mix it with a little bit of sugar, put some ice on it. I'm telling you, it's refreshing. It tastes very similar to Sprite, minus all the really harmful sugars, high fructose corn syrup, and obviously the carbonation. So that's one suggestion. It's healthier. Fresh lemon juice, lime juice is really good for you anyways. It actually helps metabolize some of the food you're eating. So that would be a healthy alternative that hopefully might curve a little bit of that.
It's gotten to the point, Hartley, where, and guys, so we've talked about this with habits and things. It gets to that point, and it can occur with anything where it becomes kind of an addiction, right? And Hartley, I know you were saying it kind of tongue in cheek, but what's happened is those neurological pathways have been created. The dopamine gets released when you're getting a cold can, right? And it's going to feel great, and you get that little dopamine rush, and it reinforces it. And so what you've got to kind of start working on, paying attention to those triggers, and it's going to take time to change. You can change it for a week, because mental fortitude, you can change for a week. It's going to be changing it for 3 weeks or longer, or however long it's going to take until you start to rewire that. And guys, that goes with any type of food and food habit. It's still there. You need to make those changes. Now, when I started looking at not just what I was cutting out, and adding in the enzymes, the probiotics, and some of these other vitamins, I started this talking about my energy. One of the biggest things that shifted for me, and that might be part of it, if you go through, and I'll let you talk about a real better cleanse here in a second to kind of kick off your baseline. Chris was talking about reestablishing your baseline. So I went through that process, got reset, added in enzymes and probiotics, and allowed that to become part of what I was doing. I started to sleep better. I started to have more energy during the day. I didn't have the 2 to 3 o'clock crash that I used to have all of the time. I didn't, was no longer going through life just tired. And it was such an amazing experience for me because it was the first time in my life that hadn't, it was so tremendous to go from every day of every moment of my life that I could remember, I was tired, to all of a sudden having energy. My production went up. It just happened to coincide with when I was finally starting to get things going with online and trying to do things for myself. It allowed me the energy, the mental acuity and clarity to get something done. Guys, maybe, so Hartley, if that's, if energy is one of those issues, it could be Sprite and a number of those other things, right? If it's, maybe there's too much sugar that's starting to get into your system and then into your blood, and you're not digesting that along with it, right? So there's all of these different elements that play into it, guys. It's rare that it's just one thing, but if all you can do is one thing, remove some of those negative elements.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, we're talking about what are some real simple things that can be done just to start establishing more energy in our lives? So I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for almost my whole entire adult life. And it's important for all of us to have that energy. I mean, there's days that are so wearing and there's so much going on. There's so much to manage and there's motion behind it and people and there's all this stuff and stress. And so when our energy levels are low, it doesn't help us. That does not serve us in any way. And so we're talking about how do we help increase our energy as entrepreneurs here so that we can have more of that energy, so that we can be a higher performer, so that we can have more mental clarity. And so these are just some foundational things, guys. And to reiterate, doing something with enzymes, whether it's supplement or more raw foods with your diet. Another one is the not drinking large amounts of carbonation during your meals. And the more you drink them throughout the day, if you're just always pounding carbonation, it's raising your acidity levels too much. Someone was talking about maybe a little bit of carbonation, like some carbonated mineral water. Yeah, guys, that's a balance. Just a little bit of carbonated mineral water here and there, that could potentially help neutralize some of the acidity in your body. But I'm talking about, drinking a ton of sodas, drinking a ton of carbonation, especially during mealtime. It's not going to serve you. It's going to prevent your body from metabolizing the energy from the foods that you're eating. So
what about alcohol and coffee?
Okay, so let's talk a little about alcohol and coffee. And let's throw energy drinks in there as well. Let's throw Red Bulls and Monsters and all those different things, okay? So let's just start with things that are high caffeinated beverages, okay? Coffee, even green teas, okay? And I know there's some benefits with green teas and coffee, but there's also some negative things to these things. And then energy drinks in general. We'll talk about alcohol as kind of a little appendix here in a second. So all of these things contain high amounts of caffeine. And so caffeine can create a diuretic. It helps to create a little bit of this rush, dopamine, chemical reaction that's literally creating this, oh, wow, I feel so good. But we know as soon as that happens and spikes, we're like, man, I feel awful. Give me another one. And we become dependent and we need more and more and more of it. So it's
you
not
build up a tolerance with it. You get to where, pre-workout's the same way, right? You take in some every single day. At some point you need 2 scoops, 3 scoops, and then you go, this isn't doing anything for me. And you need to reset again.
Yeah. And one of the things that it stimulates is it's stimulating our adrenal system. So our adrenal system was primarily made for this fight or flight thing, that when we're sensing adrenaline, we're ready to go. We're ready to run, we're ready to fight. It's our adrenal system wasn't necessarily meant to say, hey, let's stimulate it all day, every day, to make us feel like we have all this energy, but our bodies aren't producing that energy. It's literally this stimulant through a pill or an energy drink or a caffeinated beverage like coffee that is stimulating an adrenal response to produce adrenaline. Well, guess what? Over time, our adrenal glands become very, very fatigued. Our bodies get sick of producing adrenaline. And so to create that stimulation, as Drew was saying, we have to have more and more and more of these things to stimulate it, but then it fatigues us more and more and more. So it's literally fatiguing and weakening our systems as we're constantly trying to stimulate our adrenal system. So one of the things is trying to understand how can we limit our intake of energy drinks, caffeinated beverages. Again, some people might say, hey, I'm going to completely go off them completely. Awesome. A lot of people can't do that. But again, it's learning this balance of how do I make sure that I'm not consuming these things all the time? Because the more you consume them, the more it's going to fatigue your body and actually beat your body up over time to where it prevents your body from naturally producing the energy that it needs. If you're always stimulating an adrenal response, your body that's actually trying to metabolize energy and create energy, it starts shutting down because you're always giving it this pseudo hit of energy through your adrenal response. And eventually it can become so out of whack that it's almost like your body just literally doesn't have any energy ever anymore unless you're taking some sort of supplement or stimulant. And so that's obviously a road some people, will get to eventually as well.
Yeah,
So
you guys pay attention to what you're doing throughout the day. A lot of this boils down to that. If you don't have energy, then sit for a moment and analyze things. If you need to go get the live blood analysis, if it's something more serious, check with the doctor. If it's, whatever you've got going on, if you recognize, hey, like Harley was saying, I have to have 2 of these a day. And a lot of you guys are in the same, we kind of chuckled. A lot of guys are in the same category, except it's coffee, or it is the green tea, or it's a Diet Coke, or it's, I mentioned the pre-workout before you go work out, or it's something to, it's the drink before bed so that I can fall asleep. Whatever it is that you have that you're using in one way or another as a crutch, there's a very good reason that it's there is because you've allowed it to, and you've got to be aware of what's going on and start to change those habits. So we're talking about caffeine. Alcohol is one of those things where a lot of times people will have, a drink before bed, right? Or a few drinks. And I know a number of people like that. There's a number where before bed, with dinner, right after dinner, it helps me relax. It's just, a glass of wine or 2 glasses of wine or a bottle of wine, right? Or it's a beer or 2 beers or 4 beers. But if the only way you can get to sleep with that is with that, then there's an issue, not just because of the fact that you're consuming it too much, but because it messes with your sleep and won't allow you to have as deep and restful sleep as you would normally. And so you wake up not just hungover, it maybe you're not hungover when you wake up, but it affects your sleep. So it's not as peaceful. So you wake up without as much energy. It can help dehydrate you. And if it's dehydrating you, then my blood's not circulating right. If my blood's not circulating right, I'm not getting the nutrients, I'm not getting the oxygen that my body needs to have energy. Can we see how all of this flows together? Right? There's a couple of you that occasionally during this call, you hit that. It's not the 2 o'clock time frame, but it's the noon 12:30, because I catch some of you nodding off. And normally we have a decent amount of energy here, but if that's happening all the time, guys, pay attention to what you got going on, because something's happening that's not allowing you to have energy.
And so much of this, guys, is moderation. I'm not telling you, hey, don't ever drink coffee, don't ever get a Red Bull again. Like, don't ever, do, like, it's about moderation, because that's what, and if you're anything like me, I tend to be such an extremist. So it's like, if I'm going to drink a Red Bull, I'm going to drink like 2 Red Bulls. And the next day I want to drink 3 Red Bulls. Like, I have this very addictive type of personality that I become very extreme with the things that I'm doing. Sometimes it's helpful for me, sometimes it's not helpful for me. But we definitely have to learn this balance and moderation to where, hey, a cup of coffee a day, man, no big deal. That's probably not going to affect you. You're going to have some health benefits from it. But again, I need a cup of coffee every single hour upon the hour to keep me going. If that's the case, we got to start looking at something else is going on that I'm just not being able to metabolize and get the energy my body needs. Because that natural energy high is going to be longer, it's going to be better, it's going to serve you better. And that's where we have to start talking about, is our body metabolizing foods properly? Am I eating the right types of foods to pull off the energy? Am I digesting things effectively? So I'm trying to help create some foundational ideas that can help with the enzymes, some raw foods, drinking more water, not having as much stimulants. And let me talk a little bit about this kind of appendage that we talked about with alcohol. So there's a lot of things we can go and talk about, some of the harmful things that alcohol can do. But one of the things I just want to mention from a dietary standpoint, large amounts of alcohol, okay? So anytime we take alcohol into our system, our bodies immediately are triggering almost like a poison response. So to our systems, our bodies are thinking it's like a poison, okay? And that's why we feel so awful, particularly the next day, is our body has created such a type of acidic and inflammatory response to consuming too much of this that literally our bodies is trying to do everything it can to get rid of it. And so we're having like diarrhea. If we drink too much at a time, we're trying to throw it up. Like there's all these things that happen because literally our body's consuming a type of poison that our bodies is trying to get rid of. And so if we're drinking too much of it, I'm obviously the next day and throughout, it's going to create such a high inflammatory response and this kind of negative chemical response that it weakens our systems, it clouds our mind a little bit, it does so many different things. And so again, it's in moderation, guys. We have to learn as entrepreneurs, and we're trying to reach peak performance in everything that we're doing. So much of this is balance, so much of this is moderation. And so we have to be willing to kind of make those choices that are sometimes hard. Instead of 3 drinks, I'm only doing 1 drink. I'm only doing 3 drinks. I'm only going to do a Red Bull twice a week. I'm only going to do one thing of coffee once a day. It's about that balance and moderation that creates a big difference that allows our bodies to start creating a more stable environment to naturally produce energy. And that's what we're talking about. How do our bodies maintain a natural environment for producing energy? And it's about these things that we're talking about right here. These are some of the biggest things that can really help to create more energy in our life.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, do we have any questions as we kind of wrap up? Anybody got any immediate questions looking at energy, enzymes, anything like that? I'm always going to get the question back, Chris, about what brands are best. And I say there's always a number of them. Like I'm not, I don't have a link. We're not selling anything, so I don't want to throw out any particular name.
And there's some really good supplements out there. There's some really bad supplements out there. I mean, all I can say is, do a little bit of research. And typically, if you find some products that have really good reviews and really good testimonials, and if it's totally cheap, probably not going to be the best either. Unfortunately, really good products sometimes can be a little bit more expensive. But just do some research because, like Drew said, we're not trying to sell anything specific, but we just know that there's some good products and bad products out there. Yeah. But also the live foods can help a lot as well. So
yeah. And then a quick note from Dr. Curtis. He does say if you're struggling with fatigue, please see a doctor. It could be serious beyond just nutrition, and it absolutely can. Insert our typical disclaimer here. We are not medical professionals. Chris especially has studied this extensively. We're giving some basic things that are kind of common sense that a lot of times we just ignore. But if you're facing something that is a bit more serious, then please, by all means, talk with who you need to talk with, right? So
yeah, and that's why I would start. Like obviously, if you're experiencing extreme fatigue, start with your medical provider. Make sure to see what they have to say. It could be something that's not just nutritional based. But these are just foundational things saying, regardless of where you are, what's happening, try these fundamental things. No matter where you're at health-wise, these things can help. These things can help. And even whatever the doctor's prescribing or the doctor's, treatment is, these are still fundamental things that can really help with any type of diagnosis or any type of treatment.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Chris. Appreciate you being on, sir.
Is there any way to get a hold of them or like a Facebook page or anything?
Chris, is the IC Health Solutions page still running?
No. So yeah, we ended up selling IC Health Solutions a while back. But if you want to contact me, I'm on Facebook just under Chris Lang. I live in Mesa, Arizona. So you can find me that way. I haven't done things in the health and fitness space for about 4 years. My partners and I have been doing some other large business ventures. And so
Chris is working on what I've mentioned with the FAM project Jason was on talking about. So he's doing some amazing things there, guys.
You see you're in Arizona?
Yeah, in Arizona. Uh-huh.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and yeah, we are going to be putting together some training, a basic training on some of this stuff that'll be available coming up. Chris and I are going to talk about it a little bit more, but filming coming up. Appreciate you guys as always. Look, it's been a great week. Hopefully you guys have gotten a lot out of some of our calls this week. We had Tara, Blake, Chris have been on. We went over some other cool topics. All of these things are available on YouTube. Go back and watch. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. The videos go up every day, Monday through Friday. There's a lot of cool topics there. Chris, my man, appreciate you being on, brother.
Yeah,
Always
thanks,
good.
guys. Yeah, appreciate it. I enjoyed it.
All right.